picture this. You're walking into like your 10-year high school reunion.
Oh, boy.
Right. And you are sitting at a table with a partner who, well, if we're being completely honest, you are actively starting to resent.
That's a tough spot to be in.
It is, because they don't listen, they're super stubborn, and like every time they try to explain their rationale for some decision, you just want to sink lower into your chair.
Sounds like a really long, miserable night ahead of you.
Oh, but it gets immeasurably worse.
Wait, really? How?
Because suddenly the doors to the banquet hall swing open, and in walks your high school sweetheart, the one that got away.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. And they haven't just aged well, you know? They are wildly successful. They look absolutely incredible. And here's the kicker. They walk in holding hands with your loud, obnoxious, incredibly wealthy crosstown rival.
Wow. That's a visceral, stomach-dropping nightmare right there.
Exactly. And that nightmare is the literal reality currently playing out for the entire Liverpool fan base.
Yeah, it really is.
We're looking at what has to be one of the most explosive off-pitch storylines in modern sports history.
Without a doubt.
The shocking appointment of Xabi Alonso as the new manager of Chelsea Football Club starting July 1st, 2026.
It's a move that has entirely fractured the narrative for two of England's biggest clubs.
Yeah.
The fallout is just staggering to witness.
Totally staggering. So we've got a massive stack of sources today for this deep dive.
Yeah, we've got a lot to get through.
We're looking at these raw, completely unfiltered Reddit threads from the Chelsea subreddit, the Liverpool subreddit, the general soccer communities.
And we're cross-referencing all that with the actual breaking news drops.
Right, from top-tiered journalists. We're talking David Ornstein, Kieran Gill, Matt Law.
The heavy hitters.
Exactly. And our mission today is to analyze this community reaction entirely from the fans' perspective.
Because it's not just about the headlines.
No, not at all. We are looking at the emotional whiplash, the huge structural debates over how modern mega clubs are actually run, and a fan base pushed right to the precipice of open mutiny.
Because, this isn't just a story about a high-profile coach taking a new job.
Right.
It's essentially a fundamental referendum on the changing nature of football club ownership. It's about the evolving definition of what a modern manager actually is in today's game.
Which is a huge point of contention right now.
Oh, absolutely. And it's about the psychological breaking point of a fan base that just feels so alienated by the data-driven executives running their club.
Yeah, that tension is incredible. But before we cross the country to examine the sheer despair currently flooding Merseyside, I feel like we need to start at the epicenter of the blast radius.
Makes sense. We have to look at West London.
We do. We need to look at the sheer, unadulterated jubilation happening among the Chelsea fan base.
Jubilation is the right word. The contrast is just jarring.
It really is.
Because, just to set the immediate context here,
Yeah.
Chelsea had just suffered a devastating loss in the FA Cup final to Manchester City.
Gut punch.
Absolute gut punch. The mood around Stamford Bridge was toxic. They had just sacked their head coach, Liam Rosignol, who missed out on the Champions League despite being handed this massive 5.5-year contract.
Which is just crazy business.
Yeah, so the fans are miserable. And then, boom.
The David Ornstein bomb drops.
Exactly. Xabi Alonso, 4-year contract. Manager of Chelsea.
And the reaction on the Chelsea subreddit is just, it's euphoric disbelief.
Yeah, they couldn't believe it.
Like one user literally commented, "I just shouted hallelujah in church."
I saw that one. That's amazing.
And another deployed that classic internet trope, saying, "Just fell to my knees in a Tesco."
Oh, the Tesco meme. Always a classic.
Always. And somebody actually replied to that one saying, "You in aisle 6. I fell to mine at the fruit and veg and thought I heard something."
That's hilarious. But, it's a great visual, obviously. But if we look at the underlying psychology there, it reveals this profound sense of relief.
Relief from the chaos.
Right. It's exactly. Chelsea fans have been through a total grinder with their ownership group, Blueco.
To say the least.
Right. The fans have just watched this incredibly chaotic cycle of hiring and firing.
It's been wild. Like Graham Potter on a 5-year deal.
Yep. Then Mauricio Pochettino on a 2-year deal.
Then Enzo Maresca on a 5-year deal.
And then Rosignol on a 5.5-year deal.
It honestly felt like the boardroom was just, throwing darts blindfolded.
That's exactly what it felt like.
Handing out half-decade contracts to guys who were routinely gone before the Christmas decorations even came down.
Which is wild. So the relief we are seeing in these threads, it isn't just about securing a marquee name like Xabi Alonso.
No, it's deeper than that.
It's the perception that Blueco has finally as the fans put it, taken the hint.
Like they finally learned their lesson.
Right. The fans feel the ownership has accepted that their strategy was fundamentally flawed, and they actually changed their approach.
Yeah, they didn't go for a safe, compliant, mid-table option this time.
No, they secured a global name who commands immediate, unquestionable respect in the dressing room.
And you see fans thrilled about the implications for the actual squad, too. Like, they are desperate for a ruthless clearing of the house.
Oh, absolutely. They want the dead weight gone.
Yeah, in these threads, fans are literally begging Alonso to clear out certain players. They specifically name-drop guys like Mykhailo Mudryk and Alejandro Garnacho.
Which makes sense given Garnacho's recent comments.
Right, because Garnacho recently opened up about his Manchester United exit, saying he did some, quote, bad things.
Yeah, not the kind of attitude you want.
So the fans see these guys as prime examples of just disjointed squad building. The Chelsea fans believe Alonso is the guy who will finally bring some discipline and, trim the fat.
Well, they hope so.
Yeah.
But the narrative around Alonso right now is actually far more complex than just, a savior arriving on a white horse.
I am so glad you brought that up, because I am not entirely buying the Chelsea euphoria here. I really need to push back on this.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are talking about a manager who was literally just sacked by Real Madrid.
He was.
And according to our sources from the Spanish press, it wasn't a gentle parting of ways. It was an unmitigated disaster.
Got really ugly.
Like, he allegedly lost the dressing room completely. The reports say he became this political figure, constantly offering concessions to untouchable stars.
Giving them whatever they wanted.
Right. Shortening video sessions, giving more days off, and essentially compromising his entire tactical philosophy just to appease these massive egos.
Which is essentially the opposite of what Chelsea fans think he's going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why are Chelsea fans treating him like the Messiah? Why wouldn't we just see Madrid 2.0 happen at Stamford Bridge?
That is the exact paradox that neutral fans are pointing out right now.
Right. It just seems so obvious.
Yeah, on the broader soccer subreddits, rival fans are really laughing at the irony of it all. They are joking that Xabi is, like, speedrunning the most toxic managerial environments in world football.
Going from Madrid straight to Chelsea, that's a brave career path.
It is. But if you analyze the discussions among the actual Chelsea faithful, they view his failure at Madrid not as a red flag, but as this crucial learning experience.
Like, it's a feature of his development, not a bug in his philosophy.
Precisely. The Chelsea fans are looking at the mechanics of their own squad right now.
Okay.
As one executive pointed out in the sources, Chelsea has one of the youngest squads assembled in recent years.
They do, yeah. Those kids.
Right. They do not have the entrenched, aging, unmanageable egos of that Real Madrid dressing room that ultimately, chewed Alonso up and spat him out.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Chelsea fans see a squad of young, highly athletic, malleable players. They essentially see a blank canvas for him to work with.
And crucially, it's a canvas without the distraction of European football next season.
That is a huge point. We need to look at the mechanics of Alonso's preferred system.
The gegenpress.
Yes, the gegenpress, which relies on intense, coordinated high pressing in incredibly rapid transitions.
Which you can't just teach overnight.
Exactly. Implementing that requires relentless drilling on the training pitch. Madrid didn't afford him that time.
Because of the packed European schedule?
That, and players who just flat out refuse to run without the ball.
Right, the egos.
So Chelsea fans believe that without the midweek travel of the Champions League, Alonso will actually have the uninterrupted training blocks needed to hardwire this system into these young players.
They believe he was trapped between his ideals and an uncontrollable reality at Madrid.
Right. And at Chelsea, they feel his ideas can actually take root.
It's the classic rebound narrative, isn't it?
Totally.
Like, he learned what not to do with his highly demanding, high-maintenance ex, and now he is ready for a healthy relationship where he sets the rules.
That's exactly how they're framing it.
But, while Chelsea fans are literally mapping out parade routes for 3 years down the line...
They get ahead of themselves as usual.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, there is a fan base up the M62 that is essentially barricading the doors. We have to pivot to Liverpool.
We do. We really do. Because if Chelsea is a story of, unexpected redemption, Liverpool is a story of a deep, systemic existential crisis.
The mood on their forums isn't just disappointment.
No.
It is toxic.
Super toxic. The language they use in these threads is incredibly stark,
Yeah, fans describe feeling physically sick.
calling the news gut-wrenching.
One of the most prominent posts actually dubbed the situation the Anfield screw job.
Which is strong words.
Very strong. But you really have to understand the mythic ties Xabi Alonso has to Liverpool to get why it hurts this much.
Right. He's not just some random manager.
No, he won the Champions League there in 2005, the miracle of Istanbul.
He scored in that game, right?
He did. He scored the equalizer. So to the fans, it felt like predestined that he would one day return to manage them.
It's a fairy tale narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As one fan put it in the threads, it felt, quote, meant to be, unquote. They felt it carried the exact same emotional weight as when Jurgen Klopp originally arrived from Dortmund.
But the anger here, and this is the really fascinating psychological dynamic at play, the anger isn't directed at Xabi Alonso for going to a rival.
No, it's really not.
Right. The fans aren't burning Alonso's shirts in the streets. They aren't calling him a mercenary or a traitor.
Not at all. In fact, one of the most upvoted comments across all the Liverpool threads is, quote, Chelsea didn't screw LFC. Alonso didn't screw LFC. LFC screwed LFC.
Wow. That sums it up perfectly.
It really does. The overwhelming sentiment is that Alonso didn't reject Liverpool. It's that Liverpool inexplicably failed to even pick up the phone.
Because, according to the reporting from David Ornstein, Alonso was, quote, not under consideration at Liverpool at all.
Which is just mind-blowing to the fans.
The club fully intended to stick with their current manager, Arne Slot.
Yep.
So for the Liverpool fans, knowing that a club legend, a guy who was a proven winner at Bayer Leverkusen, was on the market.
Actively wanting a job in the Premier League, by the way.
Yes, actively looking. And their club simply ignored him. It is viewed as a generational fumble.
Just put yourself in the shoes of a Liverpool fan for a second.
Oh.
You spend your whole life hoping to reconnect with this person. They finally move back to your hometown. They are single, and your family actively refuses to give them your phone number because they think your current, absolutely miserable relationship is fine.
That's a great way to put it. And to grasp the true depth of this despair, we really have to look at how fans are contrasting this moment with past eras of club history.
The historical context is so important here.
It really is. You see fans constantly referencing the Jurgen Klopp era in these discussions.
Because when Klopp arrived, the team was objectively poor.
Very poor. But Klopp brought this immediate, undeniable sense of hope.
A clear structural vision.
Exactly. The fans bought in instantly. And now, as one fan brutally phrased it, they feel they are watching Klopp's decade-long legacy being, quote, turned to absolute poo in 2 seasons.
Ouch. Just ouch.
Yeah. But the more telling historical comparison fans are actually making is to the dark days of the Roy Hodgson appointment.
Oh, around 2010.
Right. For those who track the history of the club, that was arguably the lowest point in modern Liverpool history.
The club was heavily leveraged.
They were facing administration. It was bleak.
Really bleak.
But as one really insightful fan pointed out in the threads, there is a crucial psychological difference between then and now.
What's the difference?
Well, back during the Hodgson era, the fans knew the owners at the time, Tom Hicks and George Glett, were financially drowning.
They were just trying to keep the lights on until they could sell the club.
Precisely. Survival was the only metric that mattered.
So the expectations were anchored in that grim reality.
Yes.
It was a terrible time, obviously, but the mechanics of the misery actually made sense.
It made logical sense. But today, this is a club that, under Fenway Sports Group, has been rebuilt into a multi-billion-dollar global juggernaut.
They are completely stable financially.
Very stable. And they are expected to challenge for major titles every single year. So to sit back and watch a prized managerial asset like Alonso go to a direct rival while the club obstinately sticks with a failing project.
The fans feel that leadership is actively, deliberately choosing mediocrity over ambition.
Exactly. It isn't about survival anymore. It's about a refusal to strive for greatness.
Which really begs the core question here, why?
Yeah, why do it?
Why did Liverpool let this happen? Why ignore the absolute obvious choice?
Well, the fans have a very clear, highly structural theory about this.
And it comes down to a linguistic distinction that carries massive weight in football, doesn't it?
It really does. Manager versus head coach.
This is such a fascinating part of the modern game.
This is where the debate over modern football infrastructure really comes into play. And it is frankly brilliant that the fans have zeroed in on this specific detail in the reporting.
Because when David Ornstein broke the news of Alonso to Chelsea, he explicitly stated that Alonso was appointed as a manager.
Not a head coach?
And in modern football parlance, that distinction is like a massive canyon.
It is the difference between being the CEO of the football side
All right.
and just being a middle manager.
Right.
A head coach is essentially an employee who runs the training sessions, picks the starting 11 for the match, and works exclusively with the players he is given by the sporting directors above him.
He doesn't buy the groceries. He just cooks the meal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a manager in the traditional British sense, the Sir Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger model, a manager demands control over transfers, squad planning, the medical department.
The overarching culture of the entire club?
Exactly. And according to the sources, after Alonso was burned so badly by the chaos and the player power at Real Madrid, he absolutely demanded assurances of control before taking his next job.
He wasn't going to let that happen again.
Right. He wanted the power to shape the squad, to clear out the egos, and to not be undermined by executives buying players he didn't even ask for.
And Chelsea, surprisingly, agreed to those demands.
They did, but Liverpool, crucially, would not.
And this right here is the root of the fans' fury directed at Liverpool's top executives.
Sporting director Richard Hughes and CEO of football Michael Edwards.
The fans are just tearing into them. They accuse them of having massive egos, of being bureaucrats who absolutely refuse to cede a single inch of control to the man actually standing on the touchline.
Yeah, I read this one comment that summed up the fan consensus perfectly. The user wrote, quote, "Hughes and Edwards don't want a manager to have a say. They want a quiet, reserved yes man who will do as he's told."
That is the prevailing theory, isn't it?
It is, and we need to look at how Michael Edwards actually operates to understand why.
Right, because he's a legend in his own right for his methods.
He is. He is the main architect of Liverpool's entire data-driven model. He uses pitch control metrics, expected threat models, complex data modeling to identify undervalued players.
He's the Moneyball guy.
Exactly. So an all-powerful manager like Alonso, who relies on his own specific tactical profiles and demands bespoke players for his own system, well, that simply doesn't fit into Edwards' spreadsheet.
It messes up the algorithm.
Right. The executives would rather hire a compliant head coach who won't disrupt their established data model.
It is exactly like a tech company where the brilliant, visionary software engineers are being completely overruled by the spreadsheet-obsessed accountants.
It's a great analogy.
Right. The accountants are saying, no, we have a system, follow the flowchart, maintain the margins, and as a result, the actual product, the football on the pitch, is being entirely ruined.
And the incredible irony here, which several fans astutely pointed out in the threads, is that their current yes man, Arne Slot, isn't even playing along anymore.
Oh, this is the best part.
Despite being hired explicitly as a compliant head coach, Slot has been actively making public demands for transfers and openly criticizing the lack of squad depth.
Which is a huge break from the Klopp era.
Massive.
Ah.
As one fan noted, Klopp was famously defensive of the club's transfer decisions and budget.
Right, he was always shielding the owners from public pressure.
Always. But Slot is actively exposing them.
And there is a growing sentiment in these threads that Jurgen Klopp's sheer radiant brilliance historically masked the structural incompetence of Edwards and the Fenway Sports Group.
That Klopp was the magic glue holding a rigid, flawed system together.
Exactly. And now that Klopp is gone, fans feel the curtain has been pulled back, exposing what they're literally calling a dark triad of club leadership.
The shift in sentiment toward the ownership, FSG, is palpable.
It's a complete 180.
It is. Fans who for years defended the ownership's sustainable, data-driven model, fans who proudly proclaimed they were never, FSG out,
Right.
are now calling the ownership entirely negligent. They accuse John Henry and the board of literally sitting on their hands while the club burns.
So let's look at the reality of the situation then. If Edwards and Hughes wanted this compliant yes man in Arne Slot, and they were willing to let a generational talent like Xabi Alonso slip through their fingers just to maintain their hierarchical control,
Yeah.
how is that actually working out for them on the pitch right now?
In a word.
Yeah.
Disastrous.
Yeah.
The off-pitch anger we've been talking about is entirely fueled by a dire on-pitch reality. Let's look at the numbers.
Let's do it.
Liverpool is sitting on a maximum achievable point, total of 65 points for the season.
65.
Yes. To put that in context, that is their worst total in 10 seasons.
Wow.
It is officially worse than any full season Jurgen Klopp ever managed to the club. The data completely validates the fans' panic.
So it's not just irrational fan emotions. The math is horrific.
It is. And it's not just the math. It is the atmosphere inside the stadium.
Right.
There is an active vocal rebellion against Slot happening right now.
In Anfield.
Yes. The sources detail a specific, highly damaging incident where Slot was heavily booed by his own Anfield crowd for substituting a player named Rio.
Booing your own manager at Anfield is extremely rare.
It really is. And Slot even had to address it in the press.
What did he say?
He admitted, quote, "I don't think it was only some of Anfield that booed the Rio sub. There were a lot. I knew this would be the reaction."
Oh, man. When a manager loses the match-going crowd to that degree, the clock is ticking loudly.
Very loudly. But the crisis isn't contained to the stands.
It never is it?
No. It has infected the dressing room. And this leads us to the explosive situation with Mohamed Salah.
The Salah situation is just incredible. Salah literally goes to the press, and he doesn't just offer standard PR-approved frustration.
No, he doesn't hold back.
He drops a tactical nuke. He publicly states that he feels thrown under the bus by the club.
We really have to analyze the BBC report on this because it is damning.
Let's get into it.
Sources told the BBC that Salah's relationship with Arne Slot is genuinely broken.
Genuinely broken. That's the exact phrasing.
That's the phrasing. Salah reportedly doesn't see a future at Liverpool with Slot as manager, explicitly because he feels the tactical approach, which, remember, was driven by the board's transfer dealings, is actively working against his strengths.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of that. Because Salah is an inverted winger. He needs an overlapping fullback to create space for him, and he needs rapid transitions to exploit high defensive lines.
Which is what he had under Klopp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Slot plays a highly rigid, possession-heavy positional game that essentially isolates wingers on the touchline.
Yes.
So Salah is essentially saying the board bought players that force the manager into a tactical system that renders their best player completely useless.
Exactly. But here is where it escalates from a star player having a tactical disagreement to a full-blown organizational crisis.
Right.
Salah makes this post on social media outlining his frustrations.
A very public post.
Very public. And who interacts with it?
Oh, this is the craziest part.
His teammates.
Mm-hmm.
The sources specifically name Ekitike and Curtis Jones as players who liked or replied to Salah's outburst.
Think about that for a second. You have a mutiny on a ship, and it isn't just the star navigator complaining about the route.
No.
The rest of the crew is actively signing the petition right in front of the captain.
That is the smoking gun for the fans right there.
Yeah.
It is one thing for a superstar event. It happens.
Sure.
But it is an entirely different level of structural collapse when the rest of the squad publicly endorses that insubordination.
It's wild.
For the fans, this is undeniable proof that Arne Slot hasn't just lost the fans, he has completely, irrevocably lost the dressing room.
So I want to challenge the prevailing fan narrative here, just for a moment.
Go ahead.
Is it possible that this modern fan base is just being incredibly impatient?
How do you mean?
Well, when you transition from a legend like Klopp to a new system under Slot, there are always going to be growing pains. It takes time to implement a new philosophy.
Sure, transitions are hard.
Right. So if a manager loses Salah, does that really mean he has lost the entire club? Or is it just the necessary, albeit painful, friction of turning over an aging squad?
It is a fair question to ask, but from a historical footballing perspective, once a manager loses the dressing room to the point of public social media endorsement against him by his own players, the situation is almost never salvageable. The players have down tools. They no longer believe in the manager's methods.
The trust is gone.
Completely. And yet, the reporting from sources like The Independent suggests the hierarchy Edwards and Hughes have, quote, no current plans to move on Arne Slot.
Unbelievable. Why?
They believe there are mitigating factors.
Mitigating factors. That is purely corporate speak for we refuse to admit we made a mistake.
Exactly. And the fans see right through it. They view this as executive pride overriding sporting logic.
They'd rather lose games than lose face.
Right. The board is covering their own mistakes to avoid admitting their hire failed. And this creates a terrifying anxiety for the fan base.
The fear of a permanent slide into mediocrity.
Exactly. The dreaded mid-table team status.
Yes. Fans are saying things like, welcome to the Arne Slot Penitentiary.
That's a grim nickname.
It is. They are foreseeing what they call a Ten Hag situation, referencing Manchester United's recent struggles.
Oh, where a doomed manager is kept on life support for months.
Exactly. Kept around entirely out of executive stubbornness, wasting a whole season in the process before inevitably getting sacked anyway.
Yeah, that's the fear. So you have a dressing room in open revolt against the manager and a fan base in open revolt against the boardroom arrogance that hired him.
Which really leads us to a final assessment of where this leaves the modern football fan's relationship with their club.
It brings us to a profound sense of betrayal.
Yes.
And it isn't just about a bad season or missing out on a trophy this year. It is a genuine existential crisis.
The fans feel that the very identity, the ambition, the, quote, Liverpool way, unquote, that Klopp embodied has been hollowed out.
And replaced by a sterile spreadsheet.
Exactly. And the psychological toll of that is fascinating. There is a quote in the sources from Jamie Carragher, the Liverpool legend turned pundit, that really highlights this shift.
What did he say?
He noted a generational shift in how fans actually consume the sport now. He said that modern fans often follow the players like a Mo Salah over the club itself. And he suggested that right now, because the fan base is so fractured and resentful of the board, there are fans who would, quote, happily see Liverpool lose to increase the prospects of Salah staying and slot sacked.
Wow. That is a staggering psychological dynamic to unpack.
It really is.
You have a fan base so deeply distrustful of the people running their institution that they are actively rooting against their own team's short-term success.
They want to lose.
Yes. They believe that failure is the only metric the board will actually understand, and it's the only way to force the necessary structural change.
They want to burn the house down just to ensure the architects are fired.
It is the absolute definition of toxic inertia.
It really is.
And you just have to contrast that with what we see happening at Chelsea right now.
The juxtaposition is insane.
While Liverpool fans are actively hoping to lose to force a firing, Chelsea is executing an aggressive, ruthless pivot.
According to insider Kieran Gill, Chelsea's ownership is not messing around anymore.
No, they are done playing games.
They are ready to hand Alonso the keys. The reported plan is to target 3, quote, ready-made players, sell the surplus, and be seriously challenging for the Premier League title within 3 years, if not sooner.
The fans feel like they are standing at a train station watching two locomotives cross paths going in completely opposite directions.
It's just the perfect image for it.
You have Chelsea swallowing their pride, admitting their long contract head coach model failed, and aggressively climbing out of their banter era.
And on the other track, you have Liverpool,
plunging headfirst into a banter era purely because of executive hubris and this obsession with total control.
It is a really painful realization for the Liverpool supporters. They are realizing that blind loyalty to the club badge currently demands an endorsement of incompetence from the board.
And that's a pill no fan wants to swallow.
We've covered massive ground today.
We really have.
We've seen the jubilant shock of Chelsea fans landing a prized manager, believing their dark days of chaotic hiring are finally over.
Fingers crossed for them.
We've examined the structural, data-driven reasons Liverpool's boardroom let a destined club legend slip right through their fingers.
Because of the spreadsheet.
Right. And we've looked at the toxic, mutinous reality of Arne Slot's crumbling dressing room led by a totally disenfranchised Mo Salah.
It is a soap opera, a corporate thriller, and a sports tragedy all rolled into one.
It really is. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a lingering thought regarding this entire debate over Xabi Alonso demanding to be a manager rather than just a head coach.
The whole Sir Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger model of total control.
Right, that classic model. But as football becomes increasingly dominated by these massive multi-club ownership models, you know, your Blue Cuz, your city football groups, and these incredibly powerful sporting directors who want to control every single data point from transfers to player diets.
Yeah.
Is the all-powerful manager actually a dying breed?
It is a vital question. Are the fans at Liverpool demanding a traditional manager? Because that is what the club actually needs to succeed tactically.
Or are they yearning for a ghost of football's past?
Right. A romanticized figure of authority that modern, hyper-capitalist football structures will simply no longer allow to exist.
Exactly. Is Alonso the last of a dying breed, or the exception that proves the new rule?
It's fascinating to think about.
It really is something to mull over the next time you see a spreadsheet dictate a substitution on the pitch.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the structures behind the headlines. Keep looking at the mechanics of why these decisions are made, and we will catch you next time.